Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Hingham Board of Selectmen's meeting for Thursday, March 27th. Before I read the agenda, I'd like to just pause for a moment. Yesterday evening, Ted and I were at a meeting in the State House, which I will share with you shortly, but we happened to be heading down towards Commonwealth Avenue and Beacon Street, and obviously saw the devastation that struck the Back Bay area. And it was, you could see the smoke, and certainly the streets were blocked off and all that, but that was so de minimis. The real issue was the loss of those two firemen yesterday. And it demonstrated once again how people who are in the line, first responders in their positions, they really stood up to the issue. So I would like us just pause for a few seconds to commend the loss of those souls and to commend our first responders for all the good work they do every day. Thank you. I have a statement I'd like to read that is germane to yesterday's meeting, and as I said, I will talk about that in Selectmen reports. This statement is from Representative Garrett Bradley, and it was released today, and I'll quote from it. I said, "Like many of you in attendance tonight, I have followed closely the town's careful consideration of acquiring our water system from the Aquarian Water Company. I have seen the data the acquisition committee has gathered, and it is compelling. I support the potential acquisition and will support updating what is in many areas an outdated and antiquated system. I believe that no for-profit company will ever be as responsible a steward for Hingham's natural resources, the Ware River watershed, the aquifers that feed our supply, our reservoirs, as will our own town leadership, our friends and neighbors. Precious natural resources should not be privately owned, and companies should not seek to profit on a natural resource so vital to us all." So he was releasing that this afternoon. Ted, is that correct? So I just thought you all would be interested in that announcement. Our agenda for this evening is approval of minutes. We have the annual report from the Lincoln School Apartments, and then we'll have a brief discussion on special education funding group, an update on proposed legislation that they'll put with us. And then we have some, reports, and then we will go into executive session for the purpose of conducting negotiation with non-union personnel. So with that, on the minutes, do I have any questions or modifications?
I haven't read them.
I haven't read them, so, okay, you want to wait?
Yep.
Sure, we'll wait till next, okay?
That's a good idea.
We'll delay those till we're meeting next Thursday. Okay. Are we ready to go on Lincoln School Apartments? We are. Thank you. Come on up.
All right. This is my first visit, so
You get right up here. The seat is wired. It's connected. I won't say it's connected to the IRS or anything like that, but you're right in there. And I thank you for accommodating us. This was a meeting. We are required as a board to have reports from a number of organizations, the Lincoln School Apartments, the Lincoln Maritime, on an annual basis. And this was originally scheduled for one of those meetings when the snow arrived, and we didn't, and you didn't. So thank you.
just so you know, John McHugh, who is also on my board, and we did arrive, so.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we didn't.
I know.
It's our fault. So thank you. So if you could tell the folks at home who you are, and that would be.
Sure. I'm Dick Mason. I'm a resident of Hingham, and I'm the chair of the Board of Managers of the Lincoln School Apartments. Our function, if you will, is asset management function for the town, and we have professional property management in place that actually handles the day-to-day operations of the property. What I propose is I prepared about 10 minutes of description of our activities for the prior year, a little bit about what were some of the issues that arose, some of the direction we propose to take next year. And I have two formal deliverables. We need to deliver to you every year our financial statement for the prior year. Our property is actually audited as part of the town's audit, so you do receive it during the normal audit procedure. I have a draft of this property audit with me, and I don't know if somebody wants to take it formally or.
We'll take it when appropriate, surely.
And then the other is you need to approve the budget for the coming year. And this is our budget document that we're proposing and that we're currently operating under. And I'll give you that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
The members of the board, just to review, Tom Shanley and John McHugh are the two individuals who have been with the property since it was acquired. We lost a couple of board members over the past year. We had, however, Patrick Goggin join the board, and you recently appointed Bert Rodiger, and Bert brings a tremendous experience in affordable housing. So I think I'll lead off with what I think was our greatest success for the year. HUD conducts a vigorous review of properties without much notice. It's called a REACT, and if you are successful, you avoid REACT inspections for the next 3 years. If you are unsuccessful, your Section 8 contract is at risk. We were highly successful. 93 is the score on 100. 75 is the level at which they look at terminating your Section 8 contract or doing annual reviews. So I tell you, it speaks well both for the condition of the property and for the capability of the property management company that Corcoran, who's been with the property since it was built. Budget highlights for last year: revenue favorable by about $5,000 because we had next to no turnover. It was a very good year in terms of tenant turnover. This year we're starting off in the hole in that we've already lost 3 tenants during the first quarter. And our tenants, in large measure, they expire, and that's how we lose them and how we turn them over.
Excuse me, for the folks at home, I know many people have asked me
Sure.
about there's a list of people trying to get there. Could you just comment
Sure.
on that, since you mentioned it?
There's a waiting list that is opened whenever we think it's to a point where it's below 5 years. So we'll let it drop down into the 3-year range. And we, in fact, opened it during the prior year. We now have what we expect would be a 5-year waiting list based on the turnover that occurs.
Very good. Thank you.
Payroll was unfavorable by about $16,000. We had a terrible snow. As you guys are paying those bills for the town, we're paying them for the property. We had to invest a lot in a successful REACT test. You know about the elevator, and I'll speak more to that a little later, and some fire alarm situations that we had to deal with. Utilities, you may remember that about 1.5 years ago, we did a replacement of the boiler project for about $100,000. That came home to the tune of a savings against budget of $23,000 last year. So a terrific outcome for that investment. We made 2 other small investments that were part of that. Low-flow toilets were installed. And because we don't have the resources to do a full window replacement, we've been doing repairs and kind of reseating of individual windows, and that has paid off well and been very well received by the tenants. Insurance, we lost the advantage of being able to participate in the town's policy this year, and so our budget, we were up $8,000. Sometime during 2014, we will be able to take it out for bid and should be able to mitigate some of that. Very few replacement purchases, very few capital pieces. At the end of the year, we contributed $39,000 to our replacement reserve fund, so that now stands at $267,000, and had a slightly negative cash flow after putting that money aside. We had a town-approved $7 million in debt. We had previously borrowed $6.7 million, leaving us $300,000. We decided the reserves at the property were inadequate, so last year we took down 200 of the 300, and that's what's principally funding our replacement reserve. So we have the ability to draw an additional 100,000 if we need it.
If you need it, okay.
Budget year ahead, HUD permits us a modest increase in rent, maybe 1.5%. I think expenses should be consistent with last year. We have 3 small capital projects. You may have heard about the hottest night of the summer last year, where we lost the air conditioner in the common room, which is and just very difficult. Anyway, that's going to be replaced. We've started a patio. Folks have asked for a patio and some seating out and back, and we're halfway through that. And probably the most important one is a life safety item, which is our fire reporting system. That is long overdue for a replacement, and we're presently in the process of getting that ready to put it out to bid. That will be a project in the $35,000 to $50,000 range. We'll bring all of our fire enunciators and what have you to code and be very important. So probably another year of break-even cash flow. The one thing that was threatening us a while ago that we have a little relief on, as sequester nationally, as it wasn't clear that that was going to be worked out, a lot of HUD contracts went at risk. And I can't tell you that sequester will be fully resolved, but I think we're breathing a sense of relief that this contract at least should be fully funded, at least for the year ahead. Talk a little bit about the tenants. We have John McHugh is the tenant rep on the board, and he is a strong advocate for them. He's just a tremendous guy, a very creative guy. So these comments he got from the tenant. We had a winter day where people perceived the cold as permeating the bricks. But the new boilers and piping made it tolerable for them. That terrible summer day where we lost the air conditioning in the common room was difficult on people. There is an expectation we have to look at blacktop this year because there's been so much salt used on the driveway. But if you're unaware of it, we hold a monthly party for folks and a very big Christmas party. These are extremely well attended, and I would tell you that in general, I think the tenants are very satisfied with the experience of living at Lincoln School. Let's talk about the elevator, because it's all about money at this point. This is a project which the easy part is the elevator, as Irma knows. The difficult part is there are, I think the count was 19 people whose health condition necessitate moving by an elevator. They could not go up and down stairs. The general population, average age 82 years old, to expect them to use stairs for a 3 to 5 week period while the elevator is renovated, and there is no choice, it has to go down for a period of that type, is not feasible. So we have started to examine all of the alternatives for these folks, and some ideas involve seeing if they could be placed with family at our cost. An outcome could be placed in other units available in the area, perhaps from housing authorities. Hotel rooms have been used. We're actually looking at the prospect of putting a temporary, those lifts that go in people's homes that take you up, stairs, put a stair lift up, and we get a certain number of them. So the cost of the elevator is probably, with permitting, with public procurement, $180,000. The cost of relocation, of assisting this population, is probably at least another 50 and perhaps even more. So the context of that is reserves of 267, 100,000 additional borrowing available, a $50,000 project for the fire safety, And you can see that without other resources, we would deplete our reserves very significantly. And that is the difficulty, and Irma has been helping us with thinking about where we might go for the money for this project. In all of this, the good news is that we have reduced the debt to the town, which started at the $6.7 million level, by $1.4 million. So we have probably another 4 years of declining debt service requirements that would create a window for additional borrowing for our capital needs. But short of that, a near-term investment of $250,000 is going to be very difficult. My report.
That was concise and to the point. Thank
That
you.
was the
Thank you very much. Irma, you want to add since...
It's an amazing group of people on this Lincoln Board of Managers, and I would say John McHugh definitely represents the tenants extremely well. We call him the mayor,
He is.
which I believe he is.
Yep.
The need for housing like Lincoln School is tremendous in this town. And when we get through figuring out how to take care of the elevator, because it's going to be out of service anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks.
Yep.
And we've already talked to Chief Duff and Chief Perrano, who after they kind of gulped, as soon as we know a better schedule, we will be sitting down with them as well to plan around it. My dream would be at some point to add a wing on to Lincoln School Apartments, which Al Chambers was, I believe, the first one to throw it out, even though many people like Dick and the committee have been trying to figure out how do we add more housing like this in town. And the 5-year waiting list, I believe, speaks for itself. We're hoping we can work with the Housing Trust and have some of their money be used for these near-term capital items that can't wait until we have money, because neither of these, the fire systems and the elevator, can't wait. And the elevator really could do its thing anytime, or it could last another year, but I don't think any of us particularly want to play any games.
The elevator system, I understand, it's an analog control system, and it
Correct.
should be digital.
Yep.
And that conversion is not easy.
That's right.
Dick and his team did look at a complete replacement, and we were upwards of $330,000. So, yeah, that's not going to happen. And the people that looked at the elevator that are in this business feel very strongly that with the improvements that are only going to cost us $180,000, we can get many more years of life out of it. But I'll feel better when we have a second elevator in there. So the waiting list, and I can't thank Dick and the whole team. Patrick Goggin has been a great addition. We missed the 2 people we lost, but between Patrick and Bert Rodiger, we have a number of people who work in this business, so it's very comforting that people like Dick and Bert and the others actually have done this and work with campuses like this. So I can't thank you enough, but it's a great report, and I love a good audit.
Love a good audit. One thing I forgot that I should mention, tomorrow morning I hope to open the price bids for the property management contract RFP with Roger Fernandez, and I should mention that everything we have had to ask of the town's employees has been responded to across the board, from the office here to the work that Roger's done for us in public procurement, which none of us have a background in. But hopefully tomorrow morning we know who our new or at least we'll have a recommendation for you as to who our new property manager will be.
And there were 3 enormous proposals, because Dick handed out the reading. I did not participate in this for a whole lot of reasons. But he handed out the homework to everybody on the team, and it was, seriously, everybody left with a stack this high to read. So it was a good job handing that out.
Getting it off to them was...
Absolutely.
Thank you. All right, Paul?
Just a couple of questions about the elevator repair. Could Could the work be accelerated by double shift type work? Is that what is envisioned here? Or?
That's where we think we could get down to the 3-week end rather than the 5 to 6 week end. So
Okay.
yeah, that is part of what we're looking at as an option.
Has there been any inquiry with respect to the design and creation of a second elevator? As water is mentioned?
The general sense is that it would be unusual for a property with 60 units, 4 stories, 5 stories, to have more than one elevator. Simply the economics don't really support it. The notion was that if we were to add a wing, and we have the land, if we could add a wing at the end of the new building, you would put an elevator right there that would serve both the new units and now give you a second elevator for these. But the time it will take, even if folks want to start it, to bring a project along for new units, we're going to have an elevator long before that. So, but that would be a great solution, to have 2 elevators, and then you no longer have these concerns.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Dick, on the, you mentioned a number of I'll say, facilities-related issues, the air conditioning, the elevator and such. We have done a review. The condition of the building, other than the items you've identified, are in good shape? Is that to be fair? Or are there things on the horizon that we should start to think about?
Yeah, we should go back. At the acquisition, there was a capital needs assessment done, and that is due to be updated at the end of this year, early 2015. That indicated a total of $3 million worth of work to be done over a 10-year horizon. As we got into that, we found that in fact, we no longer use that architectural firm because we found their budgeting to be grossly out of line. They told us we were going to spend $600,000 on windows, and when the actual pricing came in, it was almost twice that. So can't tell you there's $3 million. I'm going to suggest there's more than that being done. The only thing right now, I feel very good about getting this fire safety coating done, because that's the one thing that presents too much risk. The elevator was due to be done in 2 years on that schedule anyway, so we're just coming in on that. But windows and a whole bunch of other things have got to be deferred until we get the debt service down far enough on the current indebtedness to go out and borrow enough more to do the rest of the work that needs to be done.
We had the gentleman who is like the head maintenance man.
Leo, yes?
Leo, I couldn't remember his name. He was at our last meeting, and he gave a very honest assessment of what we'll be facing in the next couple years. I thought he was good, but there are things that we may need money sooner than later.
Okay. Any questions from the public? Oh, Ms. Burns, please. This was...
Laura Burns, 96 Hersey Street. I'm sorry if I may have missed it in your presentation. Did you say who the candidates are for property manager?
Yeah, there's Corcoran, our current manager, Peabody Properties, and Maloney Properties. And all 3 of these are firms we would be delighted to have. They scored extremely high.
That's great to have 3 good candidates.
Yep.
That's terrific. Thank you.
Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I would assume you'll come back to us once your plans are in, and when you discuss the financial needs going forward.
Absolutely.
We'd like to make sure that we're abreast of those, because you're important to us, and that's the commitment we made when we purchased this back in 2008 and 9. So I think it's important for the town to know this is a good property. It's well-run, thanks to you and the Board of Managers. We're very pleased and thankful that you're there.
Thanks.
So, thank you.
Do you need a vote of us for the budget, or that's just informational? Ted, do you? I didn't think
That's
we did.
Required to be reviewed through the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen. You don't have,
We'd have to
you don't
vote.
have approval authority over
And
it.
I would defer that until we have a chance to look at it, and we'll put it on the agenda so we
They've
can
done a
make...
great job.
No, there's no question
Yep.
they have. And this report that they gave us We just have to remember to do it every year. That's the key, so that we stay on top of it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
The next item on the agenda is an update from the Special Education Funding Group, and I see the two principal stars of that effect right here. So I didn't say anything else, Laura, now.
Laura, do most of the presentation.
If you'd like to sit, Linda, that's okay. Thank you.
The chair so I can sit closer to Ben.
Oh, uh-oh.
Well, we got through the warrant article piece, and
Yes.
now we're back to the kind of legislation piece. We kind of had several things we were trying to tackle. We did not, I'm Linda Port, Laura Burns. We tried to figure out what was doable, possible, not how to fix the whole thing, because the real fix for special ed funding is more federal funding, which they had promised a huge percentage. I think they were supposed to fund 40% way back when, and they fund way less than 20%. So state is not adequate state funding, and a lot of the burden has fallen to cities and towns. So I think we did as best as we could on the timing issue with the warrant article to try to fix some of the big issue that we ran into last time. But the other two issues we thought we'd try to tackle are special ed transportation, which we're not optimistic on, but there's been a lot of proposals, and I thought as long as we're going to get behind something that would be, currently if a kid goes out to Newton, Hingham's paying for the cost to send them out there. So it's a big cost for us because a lot of the programs that we're sending our kids to are not regional. And the other thought was for the really expensive kids, we kind of had come up with the concept of the super circuit breaker. And coincidentally, so the committee met, we came up with our goals, which was trying to get better reimbursements, really have them fully fund the circuit breaker, the super circuit breaker concept, and special ed transportation. And then we went through all the bills that happened to be floating around the legislature. And there were a lot on transportation. Thought great, different approaches to it, but all trying to get special ed transportation. There was only in one bill, there was a similar concept to the super circuit breaker. We thought, great, someone actually already had this idea. It's amazing. And lots of other things people trying to do. So these are the two we decided were the most important. We're trying to get the super circuit breaker, where the concept is for the most expensive kids, you have a $300,000, $400,000 kid, try to get the cost, the excess cost of that, get the state to pick it up. My hope is that if the state, it shouldn't matter. If Johnny moves to Hull after the budget's done, or moves to Cohasset, or moves to Boston, it's just not fair. They move in, your budget's already done, all of a sudden you've got this expensive kid and you gotta try to figure out how to fund it. And bottom line is, when Johnny moves to my neighborhood, I wanna say, welcome, Johnny. Glad to have you in the neighborhood. I don't wanna say, oh my God, how are we ever going to fund your budget? So that's the hope in super circuit breaker.
Yeah. Linda, can I ask,
Yeah.
in the research that you've done, have the funding sources for, the issue is it's a growing component of the education budget.
Yeah.
And has the state begun to address how they would fund aspects like this? Because as we all know, this is an issue that comes at every town. And
In every state, I might say.
Yeah, I
We looked
know.
at every state's research, and everybody's dealing with the basic problem with, how do we do it better? And the problem is, there's no real good answer to how to do it better. The answer is, we need more funds. There are a lot more kids who have multiple disabilities. The bottom line is, we're doing a really good job of keeping kids alive that we didn't used to keep alive. Those are the really expensive kids, and we're trying to meet their needs. And there's just the real bottom line is there's not enough funding, but we, I don't know if you want to weigh anything else on the
Well,
research
there
part of
were
it.
maybe 100 bills related to special education funding
Everybody's.
alone. And so we have to tip our hat to Gigi Marachi and Garrett's office for helping us wade through. She really helped us figure out how to sort through all of that. But all of them essentially amount to carving up the same pie. None of them addressed anything related to increasing funds for special education. So it's just going to, as far as we can tell for the near term, it's just going to continue to be whatever the state can come up with, and if it's a good year, they'll fund it, at their 75%, and if it's not, they won't.
But I have some hope that if you take the most expensive kids and make them, first of all, you won't have the uncertainty of where do they happen to end up, which is, it's, in some ways, if it's a big cost, it's a big cost, but at least you know it's a big cost. It's better than the unexpected big cost.
Right.
But I have this hope that if the state's picking up those most expensive kids, that they'll figure out a way to do it better. Because currently what happens is, I went to one of the hearings, someone asking for a request, one of the schools, special ed schools, saying, we want a budget request. And, the ability of, the school department gets a notice that says, we're proposing a tuition increase. They can only go back, I think it's every 6 years. So they go in, and because they can only go back every 6 years, they hire a consultant, they have their whole team. But we might have one kid in the school district. Can we afford to send someone for the day to Medford to listen in on this hearing? And are we prepared to fight them on what they want? The North Shore did have the hearing I went to was for a school that was looking for a pretty good increase. They were taking kind of more kids that had much more special needs than they'd had in the past, so they needed better staffing, but they wanted whiteboards and they wanted a transitional counselor. And North Shore towns had kind of bound together and send someone to the, which is good. At least there's someone at the meeting speaking for the other side of saying don't fund this. But it's very hard. It's some of the stuff is you can't refute. The whiteboards, the school, they were saying, wait a minute, we don't have whiteboards in every classroom. How come they're getting whiteboards? Or they want a transitional counsel to help the kids kind of move back or back to their home district. And they're like, we don't have transitional counselors in our district. But if the state were picking up the cost of that, I think they'd just be I think there'd be more of an effort to try to figure out, and especially if they're picking up special ed transportation, maybe there's a better regional method to do it. I don't know what the answer is, but I think if you were paying for all of the costs, you'd figure out a better way to do it.
No, it would seem to me, and particularly, somebody's got to assess the whole area to understand the impact. Just as luck would have it, I'm driving over tonight, and WBZ had an article on the news, and they were
I
talking...
planned it.
Was that you? Did you do that, Linda? Okay. But they were talking about autism and the rates for autism.
Yep.
And I did not know this, but there is a gender difference between boys and girls, and the difference is significant. And they didn't say specifically. One is 1 out of 42, and the other is 1 out of 189. So it's not a small issue, and that's just a small microcosm of the issues we're talking about. But it is something that as we get smarter and understand more of the learning needs, then we understand the size of the problem that is ahead of us. So I'm very pleased that you two have, I know Laura thought she was going to retire, but that wasn't ever going to happen. That's not to that.
Well, we have to thank the whole committee. It was a
Oh, it
large
was.
committee. We had tremendous help from the school department staff, including the special education chief, who was at every meeting to support our work, and the superintendent was at every meeting. We had representatives from the school committee, representatives from the community, representative from the Special Education Parents Council.
CPAC.
So CPAC. So we had a tremendous group of people helping us. And we should mention that we actually did spend almost a year trying to figure out how to fix the whole thing before we concluded that that was not in the cards. So, but at least we tried.
Yeah, all right, let's start.
So what we brought you instead was these 3 proposals. One is in the warrant article that we've already sent on, and the other 2 are in this bill, which we bring to you to recommend that you ask our representatives to file. Both of the items that are in this bill are in bills that are currently on the Hill. And
Done a little differently.
yeah, we sat down, and we said, our dream is, let's just put in the way we think it should be done and throw that into the hopper. Technically, a week ago, all bills were supposed to have been reported out one way or another for the end of the legislative session, but when I called the Education Subcommittee, they said that they had gotten an extension on particularly on the special education bills, funding bills, those 100 bills, and they're hoping still, as when we met with Representative Peisch, who's the House chair, she said, we're hoping to take the best from all these bills and roll them in an omnibus bill and bring a bill forward. So they are still hoping to bring that bill forward. And the bill that had the super circuit breaker concept in it was Representative Peisch's bill. And we did have a talk with her about it, and she served on the Wellesley School Committee before she was elected to the legislature, so she gets it. And so she was really thought that when we said, here's our two things, here's transportation and here's this super circuit breaker concept, she said, well, transportation, to be frank, forget about it. It's just, she was that blunt. She said, it's just too much money. It is asked for every year, and every year it's too much money. And she didn't see that changing anytime soon, unless they come up with some new funding mechanism, which they're not doing. So, but on the other hand, this super circuit breaker idea of getting more help with students whose costs are really extraordinary, and we're talking just about out-of-district tuitions. That's all, just tuitions at out-of-district schools. She thought that might happen. And she's the chair, so that might happen. That might be included in their bill, and we don't know if it will be. And we don't even know if they'll succeed in bringing a bill up, but that's their plan. So our recommendation is, let's see what happens.
So I would modify that. I would like to try to, assume people have, is get this to Alice and say, look, this is what we came up with as our two priorities.
Because we did meet with her and say, we're coming to you with something, so.
To see if we can modify, get her as she's trying to take the best and the brightest and push it. They can still modify it, kind of work kind of some of the little improvements that we've done into her bill.
Do you have a timeline as to when they may?
Well, we should do it right away, because their deadline is only till June 27th. So they are working on their bill right now. So, and then either something will happen or it won't this session, in which case it will all begin again in January with new bills filed, and whatever didn't happen, we should go after it and do it again. And one of the charges of our committee was to come up with a lobbying plan to recommend to you and to the school committee, which we did recommend this legislation and this lobbying plan to the school committee on Monday, and they supported it sent to you the message that they're behind this and
Ready to work with you.
Ready to work with you on this lobbying plan, which basically,
I love the charge of the committee, because we're supposed to come up with it, and you and the school committee are
supposed to do it.
How do we get it to them?
Well, we had a suggestion. The committee, we do view the work of the Special Education Funding Working Group as being completed with the presentation of these recommendations, but.
And the passing of the warrant article.
Yes, but the group is really too large to be like a lobbying unit. So our recommendation was that the school committee appoint someone, either among themselves or some individual who can represent them in supporting this plan, and that you appoint someone, either one of yourselves or someone who would be willing to bird dog this and, be the point people for the town with the legislature. I just think once we've decided what we're doing, we don't need so many people. We just need some point people to
take it and run with it.
to take it and run with it. And I think you have the proposed lobbying plan in your packet, and it mainly consists of
Is it on the back side of the legislation?
It is.
ways to enlist other towns and other entities behind this. So that we do recommend that the Board of Selectmen send a letter to other cities and towns explaining the working group and the legislation and asking them to send a letter of support for this. I know in the Selectmen's office, you often do get letters from other towns saying, here's a bill that we're working on, would you support this? And it would be like that. And then to ask the town administrator to approach the Mass Municipal Association to seek their support through other city and town executives. On the school side, they would approach the Superintendent's Association and the School Committees Association. And then there are some local contacts, and we have already heard, I gather, from several towns who heard about our warrant article for the stabilization fund, who were very interested in that. And that's very interesting to me, because you remember the legislation that's up there that's on the third reading? Once again, the Mass Municipal Association is pushing back against that legislation, which is what prevented it from passing the last time it went up. So that may prevent it from passing, and I think it's interesting that the towns are interested in it, but the Mass Municipal Association isn't interested in it, and since they're supposed to represent us, I just think that's very interesting. Maybe there are towns out there who don't like this idea, who don't want to have the opportunity to opt in to this idea, because it is opt-in. But I just think that's a bit strange. So we did, early on, Ted and I did meet with the lobbyist from MMA who works in this area.
John Robertson.
Yeah, John, he offered the services of the MMA to perhaps bring together people to talk about this, but he wasn't willing to, commit himself to anything in particular, but, so that's just where that is. So I think it's probably good if we do proceed with our warrant article and have our option, because that legislation may not go through again.
We started something this year where I meet, and I would hope, even though I leave, that whoever is chair behind me would continue to meet with the 5 other towns that sit here on the South Shore. And we meet to discuss common issues so that we can develop common approaches so we...
Well, already some of those 5 towns have reached out over this warrant article, so
that would be
obviously
great.
this is a
Yeah,
topic
so
they'd
this
like
would
to
be
talk
a
about.
topic. I know it is, our counterparts in Norwell and Hull have said this is an issue for them. So that is something we can band with, but we
And
can
up on
do
the Hill,
something.
they said to it, they were impressed to see that Hingham had a working group on special education funding, but they did say, we need lots of towns to
right.
speak out, so.
350 voices is better than one.
Right.
And I think even for this year, to not give up on this year.
Linda
is-
never gives up.
I don't.
She's not giving
And,
up.
I think the quicker we can kind of get some
Sure.
group behind, say there's proposals, say, hey, tell them these 2 ideas are really important to the towns, I think,
So
you
school
never
committee
know.
said they would be in touch with you, with someone, and once again, we wanted to reiterate, and the committee wants to reiterate, how important it is that this be an all-town effort. That too often, school committees and superintendents find themselves up on the Hill.
Right.
And they are kind of, it's them again, and they're asking for that old transportation sped money again. And it's unusual for a whole town to get behind it, and that's what we would like to carry that message to the towns, whatever the towns we meet with on the South Shore, to say it's going to be different and better if this is a whole town effort. From your whole town, you go up there and you say, this affects all of us. This is an all-town budgeting issue. This is not a school department issue. This is an all-town budgeting issue. And I think that's one of the most powerful ways that we could go about this.
Great, I agree. Irma, you're the liaison to the...
Schools.
Yeah.
You all have done amazing work, seriously. Because we've talked about over the years, Laura and Linda, when you were on advisory, we talked about trying to do research. We talked about, you guys actually did it. Yes.
Yeah.
You just have to get off of all town boards.
Yeah, we had-
That's it. And do 24 hours a day, but it's amazing what you have found. And I'm surprised at the MMA, because now being part of the policy committee on public works transportation, the group that it's a very diverse group, but yet the MMA carried forward what the towns wanted. And everybody, when all the issues got put on the table, coalesced to a very good group of issues that everybody got behind. And this one, to me, is a slam dunk because it's so much money. And I think the last time I looked, sped transportation's $500,000. That's a lot.
The only thing I can suggest as a possible reason why this might be the case is that there is not the level of comity, respect, and trust between school departments and town halls across the Commonwealth that we have here in Hingham, or evidently in the South Shore towns who are also interested in this. And the idea of having a stabilization fund for the school committee to expend for these purposes makes some town halls anxious. I think that may be where that's coming from, but
I can understand that.
Well, I can tell you that MMA's position specifically on that issue is, and why, it's a long-standing position they've had, so it has nothing to do with special ed, it's just a philosophy. They don't want any annual budget amounts earmarked to go to a specific fund at the end of the year. They think it should be turned back to fund balance and then reallocated through that process across the board. I don't think they would mind or object to a stabilization fund that we could voluntarily put money in, but one that bill last year created an automatic provision that whatever that was left over from the school department could go into that bill, and I think those are the type of things that they move against. And MMA does make their own decisions about where they want to go legislatively, regardless of what the city and towns who make up the membership do, and that has been a consistent position for them since the beginning of their organization.
The other thing is, I'll do whatever you guys need to get done, to get this done. You've laid out a really good plan, too, so thank you for that. It's good.
Okay,
I
thank you.
think what we're looking for is a vote from you to both support the legislation and the lobbying plan, and, and hopefully a commitment on your part to assist in that effort.
So moved.
Yes,
Do you have
second.
any questions first, Doug? No, he's all done. I mean, I had an opportunity to read this over the last couple of days, and to me, it's a good step-by-step, this is what you got to do. We need to put our names on a piece of paper, and I'll send it to Garrett, because he has been very helpful to us on a number of issues of late, and then we'll copy it to the other members of the other chairman that we meet with, so that they're aware of this issue as well. So since we have a vote, are there any further discussion? We'll vote to support this proposal, and to these three sections to be enacted by the state legislature. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
And then if you would think among yourselves about who you want to be your spear carriers for the lobbying effort, to work with whoever the school committee recommends, and give them this paper
We
paper and
stand
say,
ready to
go.
help.
Linda and I,
Can we
Linda and I
vote
stand
now?
ready to help.
Can I vote now? Do I have to wait? or- No,
I will
we'll-
tell you that in the middle of the night last night, I suddenly thought up another thing the legislature could do to address a problem that we identified as one of our big problems that we couldn't figure out how to solve. And so I may come back to you with that. I don't know.
Wow, on what
I didn't.
topic? Or is it not on the agenda?
No, the
We can't
topic
talk
of the
about it?
timing of the arrival of the payments
Ah, good.
that is so problematic.
Yes.
But,
Sounds like the road building money.
yeah, you know, how the way the payments for work are, if we have an extraordinarily high year, we spend a lot of money on an out-of-district tuition, and the payments come in over the course of the next year in quarterly payments. And in the olden days, before circuit breaker, it was half and half, the town paid half, the state paid half, and the bill came first thing in October or September, whatever, and the town paid their half and the state paid their half. And we were trying to figure out how to make that work with the circuit breaker situation, because circuit breaker is not an amount, it's a percentage, and you have to add up everything at the end of the year to know what the amount should be. And finally, I realized, well, we know it's going to be at least, you know, we know what it is for the tuition. Just pull the tuitions out and just pay your circuit breaker money up front on the first day of school.
Except students move and come and.
No, but you're responsible for that child, anyway.
But that's why the
Obviously, it
idea
needs-
of state management of the issue is really important.
Yeah.
As you all know, I came from a state where you could vote for a school budget, and then the state would tap you on the shoulder and say, "Thank you very much. This is what you're really going to spend." And this was a considerable part of that.
Was it
because
always larger?
Generally, yes. Yeah, because the idea was, they had a proposal that said, we will spend as best we can the same amount for every child in the state. And I guess with geographic, issues involved. But, so I can remember my town at the time voted against the school budget, and the state sent a letter to the town council. A cousin of mine was on it, and he said, "Hey, Bruce, guess what? It's a nice vote, but they said, thank you very much, but it ain't going to happen." And so it's when you have, on the other hand, I lived in New Jersey as well, and New Jersey you might as well, the districts could be part of New York or Pennsylvania. It didn't matter. There was no central coordination at the time. And they are suffering and dealing with the same issues. So it is something that we should start to rally around, that's for sure. Okay, well, thank you both, all right? And I have all your numbers, so I know how to get you. Thank you very much. Thank you for this. Okay. Okay, we have a couple of votes. Ted, there's a vote in here on appointing Leslie Badger. Perhaps you could give us a little background on this for the public as well.
This is a requirement for Leslie, and let me grab the... This is a requirement of the position to name an individual in town the inspector of animals, and Leslie is our person.
Okay.
Is this new?
Annual appointment.
It's an annual appointment.
Annual appointment, and she has to keep a barn book
Correct.
for all her inspections and so forth.
Okay.
And I think we've just, in the past, these forms are just filed out in the office, but we're providing them for you up front here.
Okay. So, okay, gotcha. All right, that's fairly straightforward then. Oh, Irma, you want to?
Sure. I make a motion to nominate Leslie Badger as Inspector of Animals for the town of Hingham.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Old Sturbridge Village. Irma, they sent you a letter?
Yes. You want to put this on
Sure.
so Bob can, as many of you know, there is a book coming out on Bucket Town, which is really what Hingham is famous for. Oh, yay, we've got a color one.
That's even better.
That's even better. Sturbridge Village, beginning June 21st of this year, which, by the way, is my birthday, and I will be 30 again. And will be going through January 18th of 2000. Don't laugh. What are you laughing at?
He just made
Wait
a
a
motion.
minute.
He just made a
Said happy
motion to
birthday.
wish you happy birthday. So
I want to.
it's premature, though, isn't it? All right. Sorry. Go ahead.
This is an amazing exhibit. It will be the toys and little buckets that were made in this town and were very famous. It turns out the fireman that you're looking at that we nicknamed Hersey is Augustus Hudson's finest work, and people thought it had been destroyed. And it had been kept by the fire department and an unnamed captain in his basement for many years after the sign was taken down off the North Station. So they specifically have asked if we could send Hersey out, and it is going to be the showpiece of part of the exhibit. They take much, much better care of antiquities than we ever could. Hersey will be living in the lap of luxury for 6 months. And we have to sign some papers that allow them to borrow it. And that's what the vote is. And frankly, we didn't quite know if it was Mark Duff who would sign it, since the fire department owns it, since this dates back to, about 1860,
Right.
when in fact, the fire departments were very private and funded by citizens. So that's how we got here, and it really, I can't wait to see this. And if anybody wants to buy a copy of the book, there's still time. Call Andrea Young, where you can actually get your name put in the book as a donor.
That's great. That's good.
So the reason I asked Irma, Irma brought this to my attention, and I asked her to put it on the agenda for the board, is they're actually asking us to sign a loan agreement where we're actually loaning them the document, and so it's town property, so the board should take a vote to so authorize that to be.
Okay, and the loan is for specific periods, as I see on the...
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. Okay, I'm okay with it.
Me too.
Yeah? Okay, you want to?
Sure.
Read the motion?
Make a motion to allow Old Sturbridge Village to borrow from the town of Hingham a carved fireman by Augustus Hudson, dates 1830 to 1922, dated 1860, for the upcoming exhibit Bucket Town, 4 Centuries of Toy Making and Coopering in Hingham. The exhibit dates are June 21st, 2014 through January 18th, 2015.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
Okay, so one other thing, on June 21st, there is going to be a Hingham Day, so mark it in your calendar at Old Sturbridge Village. You'll be hearing more about it as we get, they're really doing, they're as
work.
excited as we are to have Hingham as a showpiece. So there's going to be special, for those of you that don't belong to Sturbridge, there'll be special rates for getting in. There'll be special events all centered around Hingham. So stay tuned, and we'll bring people up to date.
That's terrific.
Thank you.
That's very good, thank you. Okay. Town Administrator, any reports? No? Okay. Paul, have anything to Selectmen report?
A couple things. Rushed home tonight to read the Journal. And I noticed a letter by the post commander, David Sargent, and at the risk of taking from his thunder, I'll quote from his letter. It's a welcome home to the Vietnam veterans. On March 7, 2012, the Senate passed a resolution declaring March 30 Welcome Home Vietnam Veterans Day. Presidential proclamation in March 2012 cites the 11 years of combat ending on March 29, 1973, when the last of our troops left Vietnam. So this March, we ask our citizens to pause and reflect on those who didn't return, those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, and those still missing. We ask that you join the William R. Cutler Post 6053 Hingham in extending a heartfelt and appreciative welcome home, job well done. I had 2 cousins who fought in Vietnam, and one of them was severely wounded. So I was too young for that service, but I can certainly empathize with the sacrifice that my own family made. And I thank Mr. Sargent for bringing that to the citizens' attention. And just to follow up on what the chair said at the beginning of the meeting, with respect to the Boston firefighters' loss, 30 years ago, I went to the funeral of Robert Dana, and 4 years later to Sherman Griffiths, and they were police officers killed in the line of duty, killed violently, taken from their young families. This is a tragic loss to the community, Boston in particular. And I can remember when I was out at the funeral, surrounded by police officers, all paying tribute. But there's a loss felt, not just by the family, but the firefighter and the police officer communities. It's very hard. It's dangerous work. So I thank them for their continued dedication to protecting and serving us. And my heart goes out to the families.
No, well said. This is, if you, I lived in Vietnam. I lost Georgetown University. I think the number was 12 or 13 of the graduates that year did not come home. So I can relate to David's comment, and very personally. So, and anything else, Paul?
No, let's go. Thank you.
Just one thing, David Sargent is an absolute treasure in Hingham. And I thought that letter was extremely well done, because as we had a number of friends who did not come home.
Good. Thank you. Okay. I promised you, as I mentioned at the beginning, that Ted and I and a few others met with Garrett Bradley and members of the Department of Environmental Protection yesterday afternoon. to update the DEP on our proposed study and to ask them for a series of pieces of information dealing with if the town were, and as you all know, that's not been decided, but if the town were to buy the water company, whether any secret time bombs, whether any issues that the study committee and the town Board of Selectmen should know regarding such an acquisition if it were to occur, and also to seek with them to make sure we are as well educated on their goals as they are, as we tried to do yesterday with them on our goals, and that we wanted to make them in sync. And particularly while we said we had gotten our financial house, we thought, pretty much in order. There's always work to do on that side. We wanted to get our environmental house in order. And that was a message, I think, well received. And as Garrett, I want to thank him again for arranging the meeting. And the House was in session, but Garrett broke out so that he could run the meeting for us. And I had, of course, being who I am, I had these prepared remarks. And the first page of those I threw away because Garrett did it all without my prepared remarks. So he did a great job of leading the charge. So we have work and some information that they've already, Ted tells me today that he has already gotten some information from them, and that's ongoing work. But I wanted the board to know that it was a successful afternoon.
Good to hear.
Yeah. So anything else, Betty, Ted? Okay. We have an executive session scheduled for this evening. The results of the executive session, will, if we resolve everything we have to talk about, will be announced in the near future. But the purpose of it is to adjourn tonight for purpose of conducting negotiations with non-union personnel. Ms.
Aye.
Flood?
Second?
Aye.
Aye, Mr. Buffalo, aye. So it's done. All right. We will not return. Okay.
Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.